Architecture school often places a big emphasis on design, but it is important to understand that design is only one of the stages of an architecture project. The process of first finding a client through to getting your design built and the client moving in involves a lot of very different stages and steps. Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, the best place for students and new practitioners of architecture. In today's video, I'm going to answer the question, what are the stages of an architecture project? I'm going to explain the overall stages of every single architecture project, then walk through the main considerations and activities in each stage one at a time. If this interests you, then keep watching. Let's get started. This diagram shows the breakdown of the stages of an architecture project. So the percentages are indicative and of course it may vary between projects. But what is important to note is the proportion of design, about 30%, compared to the remainder of the project. So this may come as a surprise to many students. The first stage is pre-design and project establishment. So pre-design is the process of first obtaining a client and then gathering information about their project and starting to do some research. The first step is to develop a contract with your client, which includes arranging, attending and recording client meetings, understanding the client brief and project needs, preparing and agreeing on a fee proposal and contract that outlines your services based on the brief and requirements for the project and your preliminary research. So preliminary research and information gathering would include, firstly, desktop research. So you're going to obtain and gather any existing drawings, plans or reports such as site surveys, flood levels or soil surveys on the site and immediate surrounds. Then you're going to do on-site research. So you will visit the site and make an initial assessment of the conditions. You'll make inquiries about regulatory requirements such as planning and cultural heritage requirements or bushfire or flood levels. You're going to identify existing conditions and constraints. You'll recommend a list of other specialist consultants that may be required on the project, such as structural, civil or electrical engineers. You may need geotechnical or soil reports, quantity surveyors, and there is a ton more. So this phase is really about gaining an understanding of the project, the client needs, and the services you will provide based on these. Once the client has signed a contract and agreed on the whole project scope, your services and fees, you can then proceed to prepare a preliminary design for the client to consider. This takes us into stage 2, concept and schematic design. So it might be called concept or schematic design, or sometimes this stage is split into two smaller stages. It's about finalizing your research and information gathering and then developing design options for your client to consider in response to the brief and the information and site analysis that you have developed. So during the design phase, you'll again arrange, attend and record meetings with the client and now also authorities, consultants and other relevant parties. You're going to undertake a preliminary assessment of the authority regulations and requirements such as town planning. You'll prepare a detailed site analysis and start to develop the concept. You'll prepare sketches, diagrams and other information to adequately explain the concept and your ideas and possible design solutions. You may prepare design briefs and contracts for other consultants that will form part of the team, and you may start to undertake preliminary selections of materials and finishes. At this stage, it's always a really good idea to get a preliminary cost estimate based on the initial design and the size of the project for the client to consider. You'll then confirm a final concept design and obtain client approval to proceed to the next stage. So what's really important about this stage is that there may be a lot of iterative designs and options and ideas. It is highly unlikely that the client will just love the very first idea you present to them. So initially there may be several very loose and different concepts or options with pros and cons for each that you discuss with the client to get a more firm idea of what will and will not work for them. This process could include a bit of back and forth and several meetings until a general concept and layout are agreed. There may also be a requirement to refine the design based on cost estimates. So the client may find they have to reduce or refine the project scope and consider their priorities, or you may have designed it a bit bigger or more generous than it should be and it's come in a little bit over budget. Once the client agrees to a preliminary design in writing with a clear budget, you can move forward to stage 3, design development. This stage is about taking the agreed concept and developing the design in a lot more detail. At this stage, there should be no major changes to the main concept, location, and form of the building or structure, and this stage should be about refinement and making things work. At the end of design development, you will develop the practical and functional aspects of the design to ensure spaces and sizes accommodate the client brief, such as furniture, circulation, or daylight. And also that you're meeting council and authority requirements such as disabled toilet sizes, window sizes in proportion to floor area, and any other regulations. You will start to consult the work of specialist consultants to make sure that it all works together. You'll consult and attend preliminary meetings with relevant authorities such as councils to make sure that you are complying with their regulations and requirements. At this stage, you'll provide a set of pretty good plans, sections, and elevations that explain the building form, including spaces, sizes, openings, materials, fixed joinery and appliances such as ovens, toilets, basins, or sinks. You'll provide a schedule of proposed materials and finishes. And then once again, it's always good practice to review the developed design against the budget and coordinate the preparation of an updated estimate for the cost of the whole project. At the end of design development, you'll have a really pretty good set of documents that describe the building that's going to be built. Once the client has agreed, again in writing, you can move on to stage 4, which is obtaining planning and development approval. So most projects will require a planning or development and application under the requirements of local council or planning authority in your state, country, or territory. Might have a slightly different name, but it's basically the local authorities saying, yes, we're happy for you to build this. The planning or development application process is intended to ensure that all new buildings and developments meet required regulations and criteria and are assessed and approved consistently and fairly as outlined in the relevant local planning scheme. So you would already have met with the local councils and authorities during the concept and design development stages. So you understand their requirements and you've made sure that your design responds to these. During this phase, you will confirm that you are meeting all the requirements and you'll get them to give you a verbal, yes, we're happy with this. You'll attend meetings with the relevant authorities to discuss the final proposal before the application is lodged. And then you're going to take your design development drawings, and there won't be a lot more information required, but you'll prepare the application. So this is going to include analyses, studies, reports, plans, sections, elevations, diagrams, and other information. And your authority will normally have a checklist that you can just go through and tick off. You're going to assist the client with lodging the formal application, or you may even lodge it for them. The timeframes for the application process can vary a lot between councils. So some may take several weeks and be pretty quick, but in most cases this can take 3 to 6 months, depending on the size and scale of the project. Larger, more commercial projects may require that they are advertised and have community consultation or input, while a small residential renovation that meets the council requirements could be a much faster process. The project may stop during this period, or the client may choose to continue into construction documentation, which can be a little bit of a risk if there are any major changes required by council or authorities. So once you have approval, you can then move into stage 5, construction documentation. During this stage, you will develop a complete and coordinated suite of very detailed documents that will allow a builder or contractor to price and construct the project. These will be used to lodge a final building approval application right before you start construction and to call tenders or negotiate a construction price with a contractor. In this stage, the primary activity is to prepare a suite of architectural documents for construction, including firstly, construction drawings. So this is a graphic description of what things look like and where things go. Secondly, there's going to be a specification, which is written requirements about building materials, equipment, and construction systems that outline the standards to be met and describe the quality of materials, finishes, and work in general. And thirdly, there's going to be schedules. So These are detailed lists of internal and external materials and finishes, sanitary ware, appliances, furniture, electrical, audiovisual equipment, and pretty much every single thing the contractor will need to know to be able to purchase all the different components of the project. You're going to consult and reference authority, building, trade and construction standards and regulations, and obtain a final cost estimate. You're going to prepare and coordinate a complete set of contract documents, including consultant drawings, schedules and specifications, site surveys, reports and approvals. Now, once the construction documents and cost estimates are approved in writing by the client, you can then start the process of selecting a contractor and submitting the final documents for final building approval. Now, at this stage, building approval should hopefully be a formality. If you've been consulting with the building surveyor as one of your consultants through the design and documentation process. Stage 6 is contractor selection. It is critical that the set of construction documents that you and your consultants have put together are clear, comprehensive and coordinated, because if they're missing information or contain errors, this could result in additional costs during the construction process. With a good set of documents, selecting a contractor can occur in several ways. Firstly, there's competitive tender. So the project is kind of opened up to any contractor who will then be provided with the full set of contract documents, and they'll prepare a submission that responds to your requirements. It's going to include construction price, proposed team and experience, previous project history, a project program or schedule with key milestones, and any other sort of provisions, conditions, or exclusions from the price. Then there's a non-competitive tender. So this is a list of selected contractors who will be invited to tender rather than the open public. And then finally, there's a negotiated contract. So on behalf of the client, the architect can negotiate directly with a preferred contractor to come up with an agreed price. Or you could have kind of a combination of those three. Now, depending on the quality and completeness of the construction documents, this stage may require some negotiation before the contract is agreed. The prices may be higher than expected. The contractor may have some questions or exclusions or even some proposals to save money. Aspects of the design may have to be reconsidered or redesigned. Once the client agrees with the contractor's proposal, the scope of works and price, and a contract is signed, construction may begin. So this takes us to stage 7, contract administration and construction. Contract administration involves ensuring the construction contract between the client and the contractor is executed under the terms of those contracts so that everyone's doing what they're supposed to do. As an architect, you may take on the role of contract administrator or superintendent on behalf of the client, or it may be given by a third party. So the role of the contract administrator is to ensure smooth communication between the contractor and the client under the contract terms and all the processes. Contractual obligations include maybe regular site visits to review the progress of the work and make sure it's following the schedule. You'll respond to requests for information or RFIs from the contractor and make sure they have everything they need. You'll issue superintendent or architect instructions that outline changes or clarifications of the design. You'll assess progress claims and issue progress certificates to determine the correct amount of work has been completed against the money the contractor is claiming. You'll assess claims for contract price variations and adjustments of time. So if the contract documents and the drawings and the schedules and specifications are really good and they're complete and thorough, this stage of the project should be more of an administrative process. It should be easy. However, if the documentation is poor, there could be a lot of questions. There could be price variations and ongoing issues with the contractor. It's far easier to draw and document something on paper than it is to change it on site after it's been built or while you're trying to build it. Now, regardless of how good your documents are, there'll always be something that you have forgotten. There might be some accidental contradictions in the documents, and there's definitely going to be unknown site issues such as tree roots or an unidentifiable pipe that was not on the drawings, or unpredictable complications like a particular product or material is no longer available. But if you have a good contractor and a good relationship, you can work with them to easily and amicably resolve any problems. Once the building is complete, we move into stage 8, defects and post-construction. At this stage, construction is practically complete and the client is ready to move in. And we will enter the defects liability period and post-construction or after construction. The contract will usually allow for a period of time, often 12 months, where a percentage of the contract money is withheld and not fully paid to the contractor in case something goes wrong or a defect appears. So a defect could be something like a leaky roof, peeling paint, breaking hinges, or the security system fails. At the end of the project, as the contract administrator, you will review the entire project, you'll walk through the whole thing and make a list of defects or problems when the project is practically complete and before the client moves in. So the builder says it's done, ready to go. You're going to then track all those defects, including any new ones that arise during that defects period after the client moves in. You're going to ensure the contractor adequately fixes all defects before that final payment is made. This process should ideally be an easy administrative process. With a good contractor, there'll be very few defects because they'll do a good job. And if there are, they will be quick and willing to fix them. So as you can see, the stages of an architecture project are each quite different and complex. What is exciting is that an architecture project provides the opportunity for a huge variety of activities and skills. If you're working on a small project in a small practice or as a sole practitioner, following a project from the initial client meeting through to seeing it built can take years, but can be very fulfilling. Alternatively, working in a large firm on big projects allows you to focus on either design or documentation or construction and project delivery on site. They're very different skills and bodies of knowledge. But what is most important is that good design is important and it is not everything. Just as important in the process of getting something built is the ability to design within a budget, satisfy the client, document and manage a contract. They're equally important parts of the process of taking a design from client to concept to construction and beyond. So which parts you choose to embrace and focus on are up to you. So if you have any thoughts or specific questions about any of the stages of an architectural project or anything we've touched on in this video, then please pop them in the comments. If you want to know more, make sure you consider subscribing to this channel because I have a ton of content to share to help make learning, studying and practicing architecture easier and faster. While you wait for the next episode, make sure you check out some of my other work here or at archimash.com. That's it for today. I hope you found it helpful and maybe it put some of what you're studying or some of the work you're doing in a new practice into perspective. Have a great day and I will see you next time.